Dr. Miles Chen was 26 hours into his shift when the universe decided to make his day significantly more complicated. The emergency call came through while he was stitching up a Venturi cargo hauler who'd gotten into an argument with a loading crane, an argument the crane had decisively won. Incoming critical, the comm crackled. Unknown species, life-threatening trauma, ETA 4 minutes. Miles finished the last suture, stripped off his gloves, and tried to remember when he'd last eaten. Yesterday, the day before. Time on Arcturus Station had a way of becoming negotiable when you were the only trauma surgeon willing to work the graveyard shift. Unknown species, he called back. Can we get any details? Negative. Security is being extremely tight-lipped. But Dr. Chen, they're saying it's Kethran. Miles stopped walking. Kethran. The isolationist species that barely interacted with other civilizations, that guarded their biology and culture like state secrets, that had maybe 3 documented cases of accepting medical assistance from non-Kethran physicians. Fantastic, he muttered. Just fantastic. The patient arrived on a gurney surrounded by security personnel in armor that looked expensive and extremely lethal. Miles caught a glimpse of his patient. Young, female, with the characteristic long ears of the Kethran species swept back against her skull, and skin that should have been displaying complex bioluminescent patterns, but was instead a catastrophic gray. She was dying. Miles could see that much without instruments. What happened? He demanded, already moving alongside the gurney. Industrial accident, one of the security details said. Compression trauma, internal bleeding, possible organ failure. I need her medical history, biological baseline readings, anything. Unavailable. The Kethran medical expert won't arrive for another 6 hours. Miles looked at the girl's gray, fading bioluminescence. 6 hours. She didn't have 6 hours. She had maybe 1. His staff surgeon, Dr. Yuki Tanaka, grabbed his arm. Miles, you can't. We don't know Kethran physiology. We don't have authorization, and she's... Yuki's voice dropped to a whisper. She's Princess Lyrae, royalty. If you operate and she dies, the Kethran will. If I don't operate, she definitely dies, Miles interrupted. Which seems worse? Prep or 3. Full xenobiology protocols. And someone get me every piece of Kethran biological data we have, even if it's just theoretical papers and educated guesses. Miles, Yuki, I'm a doctor. There's a child dying. We can debate the politics after I save her life. The security detail blocked his path. You are not authorized to. Then arrest me after, Miles said flatly. But right now, either let me try to save her or watch her die while you wait for authorization. Your choice, make it fast. The lead security officer stared at him for 3 long seconds, then stepped aside. Miles ran. Operating Room 3 became Miles's entire universe for the next 9 hours. The Kethran princess lay on the table, her bioluminescent patterns flickering like a failing star, and Miles stood over her with instruments designed for human biology and a database of xenobiological research that was 70% speculation. Her cardiovascular system doesn't make sense, Yuki said, studying the scans with growing panic. There are 3 separate circulatory loops, each operating at different pressures. The blood carries bioluminescent proteins that seem to function as cellular communication, which means if we disrupt the flow, we're not just cutting off oxygen, we're severing neural equivalent pathways, Miles finished. Fantastic. What else? Her organs are generating electromagnetic fields. They're talking to each other, Miles. If we move something, we might disrupt the entire system. Then we don't move anything we don't have to. Miles positioned the scanner over her abdomen where the compression trauma had done the worst damage. There. See that structure? Looks similar to a liver in function, but it's failing. We need to repair the blood vessels feeding it, or she'll go into cascade organ failure. We don't know how to repair Kethran vascular tissue. Then we improvise. Standard microsurgery techniques, biocompatible adhesives, and a lot of very careful prayers to whatever deity handles interspecies medical malpractice. Miles made the first incision, and the girl's bioluminescence flared red. Pain response, he guessed. Her immune system immediately attacked his instruments, treating everything as hostile invasion. She's rejecting the sutures, Yuki reported. Her body is literally trying to dissolve our interventions. Immunosuppressants. The broad-spectrum xenobiology cocktail. And keep her bioluminescence monitored. I think it's the best vital sign we have. Hours blurred together. Miles worked with hands that shook from exhaustion but refused to falter, repairing damage in an alien body that fought him at every turn. He talked to Lyrae constantly, even though she was unconscious, his voice a steady stream of explanation and apology. "Okay, princess, I'm repairing this vessel now. It's going to hurt when you wake up, and I'm sorry about that. Your mom is going to kill me for not waiting for the Kethran specialist, but between you and me, you didn't have time to wait." Around hour 7, something changed. The gray in her bioluminescence began to shift, faint amber bleeding through like dawn breaking. Her electromagnetic field patterns stabilized. The cascade failure reversed. "Miles, her vitals are improving," Yuki said, wonder in her voice. "Don't jinx it, we're not done yet." By hour 9, Miles felt confident enough to close. The repairs were crude by Kethran standards, probably, but they'd hold. They had to hold. He stepped back from the table and his staff erupted in exhausted celebration. Miles just felt numb. "Get her to recovery, monitor everything. If anything changes, I don't care what I'm doing, you find me." He retreated to his office, collapsed into a chair that had molded itself to his exhausted shape over countless shifts, and tried not to think about the dozen ways this could still fail. His calm blinged. A message from station administration. Queen Veyara of the Kethran Sovereignty was en route. ETA, 6 hours. She wanted to meet the human who had operated on her daughter. Miles closed his eyes. Of course she does. Queen Veyara arrived like a storm given physical form and diplomatic immunity. Miles watched from the medical bay's observation window as her ship docked, a vessel that made Arcturus Station's largest freighters look like children's toys. Security details swept through the corridors, scanners active, creating a perimeter that made the station's own security look amateur. The Queen herself was taller than Miles expected, moving with a grace that suggested both dancer and warrior. Her bioluminescent patterns were elaborate, shifting through colors Miles didn't have names for, marking her status in ways he couldn't fully interpret. Her ears bore intricate metalwork, precious metals woven into organic tissue in patterns that probably meant something significant. She swept into Lyrae's recovery room like she owned it, which, Miles supposed, she kind of did now. Kethran territorial instincts probably extended to wherever their royal family resided. Miles met her there, wearing scrubs that had definitely seen better days and running on caffeine and stubborn refusal to collapse. Lyrae was awake, weak but alive, her bioluminescence a healthy amber green that made Miles's chest loosen with relief. "You are Dr. Miles Chen," Queen Veyara said, not a question. Her voice carried harmonics that suggested multiple vocal cords working in concert. "Yes, Your Majesty. You operated on my daughter without authorization, without proper credentials in Kethran physiology, without even basic knowledge of our biological systems." Her bioluminescence shifted to something that looked angry, sharp reds and oranges. "By what authority did you dare?" Miles felt his staff tense behind him. The Queen's security detail shifted, hands moving toward weapons, but Miles was too exhausted for diplomacy. "The authority of a dying child and a Hippocratic oath that doesn't specify species," he said flatly. "She needed help, I could provide it. Everything else was just details." "Details," the Queen repeated, her voice dangerous. "You risked your life, your career, your freedom." "I risked a malpractice lawsuit and maybe some jail time." She was risking death. Miles gestured to Lyrae, who was watching this exchange with wide eyes. "So yeah, seemed like an easy choice. I'm a doctor, she's a patient. The math isn't complicated." Queen Veyara stared at him. Miles stared back, too tired to be intimidated by alien royalty or security details or the very real possibility he'd just talked himself into a diplomatic incident. Then the Queen moved. Her hand reached out, touched Miles's shoulder, a brief contact that made her entire security detail freeze in shock. "You saved her," Veyara said quietly. "The most precious thing in my universe. You didn't know our customs, our politics, our biology. You simply saw a child who needed help and refused to let her die. That's literally my job description. It is more than that, much more." The Queen's bioluminescence shifted to deep blue. Miles didn't know what it meant, but it felt significant. "Such an act cannot go unrewarded. Kethran honor demands recognition. Your Majesty, I was just doing my job. No reward necessary. Seeing her alive is enough." "It is not enough." Veyara's voice carried absolute authority. "You will be honored formally, Dr. Chen. Once Lyrae has fully recovered, I will hold a ceremony. The entire sector will witness the gratitude of the Kethran Sovereignty." Miles opened his mouth to protest, but Lyrae spoke for the first time, her voice weak but determined. "Thank you, Dr. Chen. Mother is right. You saved me when you didn't have to. That deserves more than just words. And looking at this child he'd pulled back from death, Miles found he couldn't refuse. Okay, he said quietly. Okay. 2 weeks later, Lyrae was discharged from medical care with a clean bill of health and a bioluminescence pattern that, according to the Kethran medical expert who'd finally arrived, showed remarkable recovery impossible by conventional standards. Miles had endured 6 separate meetings with Kethran physicians who wanted to study his surgical techniques, all while trying to return to his normal routine. Normal lasted until the day of the ceremony. Arcturus Station's Grand Hall had been transformed into something that looked like a Kethran palace, had merged with a space station, and produced something magnificent. Dignitaries from a dozen species filled the tiered seating, and Miles stood in the center wearing his cleanest scrubs because he didn't own anything resembling formal wear. Queen Veyara presided from an elevated platform, Lyrae beside her looking healthy and radiant. The ceremony began with Kethran rituals Miles didn't understand. Musical harmonics that made his bones vibrate, bioluminescent displays that told stories in light, formal speeches in languages the translators struggled with. Then the Queen spoke directly to him. Dr. Miles Chen, you acted when others hesitated. You risked everything when you owed us nothing. You saved my daughter's life with skill, courage, and compassion that transcends species. Her voice carried through the hall. Such a debt cannot be repaid with mere currency or titles. Kethran honor demands something deeper. Miles felt a creeping sense of unease. Your Majesty, really, that's not necessary. I hereby grant you adoption into the royal family of the Kethran Sovereignty, Veyara announced, and the hall erupted in shocked murmurs. You are named honorary guardian to Princess Lyrae, with all rights, privileges, and responsibilities that position entails. You are Kethran kin, bound by blood oath to our lineage, entitled to our protection and subject to our obligations. This bond is eternal and unbreakable. Miles's brain stopped processing. Adoption, guardian, eternal obligations. I what? Lyrae stood, walked to him with steady steps that still amazed him, and held out a pendant. It glowed with bioluminescent patterns that matched the ones on her skin. This is our family crest, she said softly. It means you're one of us now. It means I have a guardian who chose to save me even when it was impossible. It means. Her bioluminescence shifted to warm amber. It means your family. The Queen descended from the platform. Do you accept this honor, Dr. Chen? There is no obligation to. Miles looked at Lyrae. This child he'd saved, who was looking at him with hope and affection and trust he absolutely didn't deserve. He thought about why he'd come to the outer stations, to escape grief, to hide from memories of patients he couldn't save, to exist without connections that could hurt him. And he realized he'd failed spectacularly at staying disconnected. I accept, he said, his voice steady despite the chaos in his head. The hall erupted in celebration. Lyrae threw her arms around him in a hug that would have been impossible 2 weeks ago. The Queen touched his shoulder again, and this time her bioluminescence showed something that looked like profound relief. Miles Chen, trauma surgeon and professional hermit, had just become alien royalty. The following weeks were surreal. Miles gained a security detail he didn't want, diplomatic immunity he didn't need, and an apartment upgrade he definitely hadn't asked for. But he also gained something unexpected. Lyrae visited him regularly, sitting in his office while he worked, asking about medicine and Earth and why humans found coffee so important. The Queen sent him encrypted communications about Kethran politics, seeking his perspective on matters he was wildly unqualified for. But she listened when he spoke, valued his outsider viewpoint, treated him like the family he'd accidentally become. Miles discovered his reward wasn't a burden, it was connection, purpose. A family that had chosen him because of who he was, not despite it. 3 months after the ceremony, Miles stood in his medical bay wearing his doctor's badge alongside his Kethran family crest when another emergency came in. As he ran toward the trauma bay, he caught Lyrae watching from the observation deck, her bioluminescence glowing with pride. He smiled at her, exhausted, covered in alien biology.